Good evening and welcome to the Arab Gulf States Institute. My name is Marcel Wahba, and it's a great pleasure for us to welcome His Excellency Dr. Nayef Al-Hajraf and to welcome him to Washington, his second home, may I say that?
You can
Since
say yes.
since he spent some time here at GW, I just learned. And also, obviously, the US-Kuwait relationship is one of the tightest, closest relationships with any country in the Gulf. So it's an extra pleasure for us to welcome you. Our board of the Institute had the pleasure of meeting in Kuwait for the first time. We had our board meeting last month in Kuwait, and I was telling His Excellency that all the board members felt it was the best board meeting we'd had outside of the United States. It certainly was a highlight. We had 3 days of meetings with we met your Minister of Defense, we met the former minister, foreign minister, and the hospitality was overwhelming. It really was. So they're agitating to go back to Kuwait next year. A word of thanks to all of you for coming after work. It's the first time we have an event after 5 o'clock, and I'm very pleased to see that we have a good turnout. And also want to thank our sponsors who are attending today because they allow us to have these special private roundtables. And certainly we would welcome our private sector colleagues who attend our programs, both public and private, to look at the possibility of supporting AGSIW's programs. With that, I would like to again welcome Your Excellency and have you discuss with us today a lot of different issues that we know are very important for you and very important for us to know more about. So whether it's economic diversification or the Kuwait 2035, we look forward to hearing that from you. And I'm going to turn it over to our own Kristin Diwan, our resident Kuwait expert, who will moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. We'll let the Kuwaitis be the judge of that, but thank you. It's such a pleasure to welcome all of you here. And I see we have a number of distinguished guests, a lot of former ambassadors and congressmen. So it's such a pleasure to have all of you here today. And of course, we're especially pleased to have you, Your Excellency, with us. I know, of course, we're speaking with you here as the finance minister, but looking over your experience, I see that you bring a wealth of different experiences here. The minister was also formerly the chairman of the board and managing director of the Kuwait Capital Market Authority, also served as the Minister of Education. So and also now stands as a member of the Supreme Petroleum Council, is that right? So have kind of an amazing experience of having your hands in all these very important aspects. So when we think about Kuwait today and think about the challenges of economic reform, to have somebody, in the senior position who's been both on the sides of looking at financial capital and human capital on the education side as well, I think we can have a really rich discussion in trying to bring all these aspects to bear. I think we'll start, if you don't mind. The ambassador mentioned Kuwait Vision 2035. We in this town hear a lot about the Saudi Vision 2030, but we know that these challenges of fiscal reform, job creation, economic diversification are shared across the Gulf. So I wonder if you could just tell us a bit about the Kuwaiti Vision, its origins. I know I heard about it some time back, but then it seems to have been reincarnated in a sort of new packaging of this new Kuwait. So can you tell us a bit about its origins and how that shifted and what some of your priorities are?
Sure. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted to be here for so many reasons, I think. I think Ambassador Wahba did mention that I'm back to my other town. Yes, I spent about 2 years in Washington, D.C. Between 1993 and 1995. And I graduated from Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, despite the weather differences, but I still feel warm at Washington, D.C. And thank you, Kristin, for the introduction. I'm very delighted to be among friends and the groups. I mean, Ambassador Ghanem, Ambassador Deborah, I feel that we share a lot of feeling how Kuwait is and what's going on there. But I'll be very delighted to share some of the thoughts and things we are doing there. Why it's very important for us to share it? Because we do believe that the world today is very interconnected. It's being affected in different aspects. And we more or less face the same challenges when it comes to economy. Well, with differences in the size, but more or less we are facing the same challenges. And these challenges cannot be addressed in isolations. It requires a lot of collaborations, a lot of thinking together in order to address these issues. And this is exactly what's been reflected in all the discussions that are taking place, let's say, in Davos. I mean, those who've been in Davos, they know that the world will meet there, the politicians as well as the economists, and try to figure out what is the way forward in the economy. When I was at school, we were told that if the Wall Street sneezes, everyone catch a cold. But in today's business, I think if anyone sneezes, everyone catch a cold. Thanks to technology, because it's made it very easily for anyone, for us to get into any market. And thanks for the advancements of the investors who become very sophisticated. And that requires that we have to think collectively. Definitely what's affecting any part of the world is affecting the others in one way or another. And for Kuwait and the US, the relation never been strong as it is now. And we thankfully and grateful for all the support that we received from the American leading the international coalition in 1991, which led to liberation of Kuwait. Ambassador Nayef was there, and he had first-hand experience. I was volunteer with the army, and I was trained by the American armies to translate when we walked into Kuwait City in February 26th of 1991. It's a moment that I will never forget. I was holding two flags, the Kuwaiti flags and the US flags. And I think I was speaking among all my generations, all the Kuwaitis who lived in Kuwait City over the last seven months during the occupation period. And it feels a lot, and it means a lot when you smell that finally you are getting your country back. And now the Vision 2035, it has been delayed. And I think the reasons why it has been delayed, because we were facing security issues in the north of Kuwait. And there was no other priority rather than securing the country. And it started to be developed in 2003 when the Saddam regime's being removed and the new government went in place, and all the story, you know it. So then we have to realize, we start thinking of what could bring the interest of people in this part of the world. It could be the oil, but now the oil is, as a market, is dominated between the producers and the consumers. It could be the political and diplomatic relation, yes, but everyone knows that this could be, there is ups and downs for any relation, so we need something sustainable. And there is nothing sustainable that will bring and unite people's interests other than the economic agenda. So what we are trying to do is to creating an international interest economically in the Vision 2035. Yes, we need to diversify our economy away from oil. Oil now contributes to about 91% of our GDP. That's a lot. The government is employing about 85% of the workforce. That's also a lot. So we have to diversify. I was announcing the budget of last year, 18-19, and I received the questions from the media saying how much you are allocating in your budget for the Vision 2035, or what we call the Silk City. I said 0. And they were shocked. I said yes, because the whole project is to create a better economy away from oil that will have 3 main pillars. One, it will invite foreign investments, direct foreign investments to Kuwait. And according to Credit Suisse 2018 report, Kuwait was number 1 in attracting foreign direct investments among the GCC. And 2, to create jobs. And the whole North Zone development projects is expected to create around 450,000 new jobs. And 3, to have a sustainable economy that could live with or without the oil. And here I would like to go back to history in 1952 with a vision similar to His Highness visions now, but it was by the late Emir, Sheikh Abdullah Salim, who ruled between 1950 and 1965. He figured that the future generation, the future Kuwaiti generations, the ones who will be born in Kuwait when there is no enough oil revenue, have the right of the today's wealth. So he created what's been known at that time, Kuwait Investment Board. And he signed with the British to establish an office in London, which still exists now, in 1952. And it has been in operation ever since. That vision secured Kuwait futures in 1990, 1991, because the amount which has been accumulated in the Future Generation Fund, by the way, it was the first sovereign fund, wealth fund ever exist. The amount which has been accumulated over the years in that fund helped us a lot to finance the Desert Storm operation and rebuilding Kuwait. And today, thanks God, we have more revenue out of our Future Generation Fund, more than the oil revenue. And this was historically for the first time last year. That vision, combined with His Highness vision of 2035, is driven by maintaining a better life standards for the Kuwaiti people and those who are living in Kuwait, is to secure the future of Kuwait generations when the time comes where the oil revenue are not enough, taking in account the high risk that's dominating the energy market. Yes, we have the commodity, which is the oil, yet we don't control the production because we are part of OPEC, and OPEC have decided that our share on a daily basis is 2.8, and last December they reduced it by 78,000 barrels per day. 2, we don't have control over the price, and I received a report every morning of how the price of the oil, and if it's high, it's not good. If it's low, it's not good, because I need to be sustainable, and this is probably back to what Kuwait is doing. We need to stabilize everything, even the oil market. So this is part of our goals here. So diversifying the economy away from the oil is translated in the vision of 2035. The vision 2035 is basically what we called it a new Kuwait. A new Kuwait, we have allocated $100 billion to reinvested in the whole infrastructure in the country. The new hospitals will actually, we doubled the size of beds in the hospitals. From 60s until 1990 or 2000, we're having 8,070 beds in the whole health system. From 2012 until now, we are adding 8,170 new beds. So that's a huge transformation of the health sectors. That's 1. 2, we are emphasizing and investing on the interconnectivity of the country. New roads, railway, transportation, because we believe that commuting will help us, especially developing the north part of Kuwait. So that amount has been allocated for the infrastructure. At the same time, the new vision, 2035, requires amendment in the laws, because most of the laws, existing laws, are quite outdated. So we have to upgrade our laws. And there is a number of new bills passed from the National Assembly that will give the comfort for the investors as well as the country that there is a legal framework that protecting everyone's right. So for our investors to work in Kuwait, to consider Kuwait as an investment opportunity, they will know exactly the jurisdiction system that governs the relation between investors and Kuwait. Yes, sometimes we've been blamed that we are very slow when it comes to passing a new law. We have a very
Deliberative.
yes, National Assembly. I mean, you were there. You were there, Deborah.
I would use a different word.
And it gives yeah.
Yes, we identify.
But it gives a checks and balances. It's very challenging, and sometimes the discussion could be very, very heated. But once the bill is passed, it's a comfort for the investor that you won't wake up in the morning and find changing the system. It won't happen in Kuwait. So it is a very sustainable environment to working in. So that's also a prerequisite for the Vision 2035. Now, having that in place, the infrastructure investments, the revisiting and reforming of the legal framework that gives every investor the comfort. Now, what we are doing is to identify the 7 pillars of the new vision. It's number 1, it's diversifying the economy away from oil. 2 is maintaining higher standards in education. 3 is maintaining a better health system for the citizens, protecting the environment, equal opportunities for everyone living in Kuwait, enhancing the IT, and 7th one, after a very long day, I remember that. No, it's not the contract. What's the 7th pillar? Doing business. Ease of doing business. Yes, thank you. Ease of doing business. And in that regard, we have improved a lot in the World Economic Forum ranking in doing business. We have a team at least of 15 or 20 will be visiting DC on the 23rd of April to follow up with the doing business, because it's very important that we meet the international standard. Having said that, we worked on another front in developing the Capital Market Authority. Kuwait knowing to have the oldest stock exchange in the region. And with the 2008 financial crisis, everyone get the hit, and we have to regain the confidence in the capital market. So a Capital Market Authority has been established, and I have the responsibilities of being among the first board in 2010 and then 2014 as the chairman. And what we did is to make sure that the Kuwait Stock Exchange will be uplifted, will be upgraded to international standard. And thanks God, now it is recognized by FTSE, by MSC, and by Standard & Poor's. And now it is classified as an emerging secondary market with a huge potential to be upgraded in the fall. With that comes the first privatizations exercise in Kuwait, where the stock exchange itself has been privatized, and now it is 44% owned by private consortiums with international operator. That was a very successful transactions we conducted over the last 3 years. It's legally very well articulated. Technically, it was very well presented, and the interest was huge. Now, 44% owned by the consortiums, the private sectors, 6% owned by the pension fund, and 50% owned by the Kuwaiti people. So that's the example that we need to introduce in the privatizations exercise that we are, or program that we are launching. Why are we doing this? Because we need to bring international standards in different aspects in the economy, because that's what gives international investors the reasons to go to Kuwait. It's like applying the IFRS in your financials. If you are preparing your financial statements in different principles, you won't be understanding. So why people adopting the IFRS? So can investors in Kuwait understand exactly the financial statements like any other investors in India, in the UK, in the US? It's international financial standard reporting standard. So it's unified standard that will make it very easier to investors and bring back what I said earlier, sophisticated investors who will be following everything around the globe on a daily basis. So having said all this, now moving to the Vision 2035, it's not secret to say that we have received great interest from different parts of the world to participate in the development of the North Zone. We are constructing Mbarak Al-Kabir port, which is named after Mbarak the Great, who is the founder of the Kuwait, the new Kuwait in 1889. And that port probably will be the largest seaport in the area of north of the Gulf. It is intended to serve the heavy populated area in Iraq, Iran, and beyond. And it will create an international zone which will provide logistics for international trades. And it linked with the Chinese initiatives, road and belt initiatives. The Chinese have shown a great interest to participate. We have a lot of Chinese visitors to know more about this, and as well as other countries who showed interest to participate in this. And of course, the invitations is open. I'll be very much to share or to host anyone who would like to know more about this Silk City projects. The last things, or actually two other things I would like to emphasize here. The human capital development. We believe, and everyone knows, that nothing will be sustainable if we do not invest in our human capital. And this is the most valuable assets any nation could have. We are a nation with young populations. It's more than 6% of the youth. We are allocating huge resources to support them. We have about 9,000, almost 10,000 students in the US alone. We have in other parts of the world in all different fields, because we do believe that this is an important prerequisite for any development plan, is the human capital. And the last thing is that making Kuwait today on the map is our goodwill. I think Kuwait is playing a very important role in stabilizing the region. And everyone knows that stabilizing the region will contribute to stabilizing the wider region and the whole world. Kuwait finds itself in a position to work as a mediator, as a peacemaker, as a stabilizer, and all of that, which we are very proud of, because His Highness vision is deeply rooted in the DNA of Kuwait diplomacy. And that requires we having a proactive role. We focus in the economic reform, yes, but at the same time, we cannot eliminate the effect that we might have from any geopolitics issues, especially that our region had enough of an unstable period. It is our role, and it's strongly believed that stabilizing the region is the benefit of everyone. And we will have no economic prosperity if there is no stability and security in the region. We are not so selfish. We are very happy to share whatever we have with everyone. We are complementing the Saudi's vision of 2030. We are complementing UAE vision of 2030. We are complementing other countries' visions, because we still and we will remain seeing this as a whole region with similarities in everything. And I think complementing each other will have a win-win situation to everyone. Sorry if this took so long, but I'll be very happy to answer the
You
questions.
covered everything that I was going to ask you about, so
Thank
that's
you.
excellent. Let me just press you, because I'm curious, because you started your comments by speaking about basically the fact that Kuwait had delayed its investment because of security concerns. And then when you spoke about Vision 2035, you immediately translated into Vision 25, or New Kuwait is the northern project. And there's obviously a connection there, right? I mean, I wanted to know if that is sort of the Kuwait vision right now. Is the drive for diversification pretty much embodied in this project, this massive project that you're looking to take place in the north of the country? Is that going to be the main engine for Kuwait's diversification of the economy? And how do you see, I mean, how is Kuwait preparing the way for that? Because obviously you talked about it being a big project, which I'd love to hear more description about it, because I've heard a lot of different things this project's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a port, it's supposed to be a city, a residential city, it's supposed to be have arts, it's supposed to have financial centers, so it's embodying a lot. How are you sort of preparing the ground for that project, given all of the different competition of reports and given the environment that you discussed? I mean, when you're trying to create this project that it has as its goal linking sort of Iran and Iraq and the whole Northern Gulf.
Yeah, it's back to the security issues, which was the priority from 1990 until 2003. At that period, I can say that everything was on hold because we have bigger issues to look after, and which has been occupying everyone's mind. But after the 2003, we worked into two arena. One, to uplift the existing infrastructure within Kuwait City and within the urban city, and to develop the northern part, which has been underdeveloped due to the security issues, starting from the Iran-Iraqi war that lasted for 8 years, and then the Iraq invasion, and after that. So the northern part of Kuwait was underdeveloped comparing with the city and the southern part of Kuwait. And that, as I said, we are very keen to create an international interest, economically interest in that part. And the project is expected to have a capital investment of about $400 billion in all different aspects. It will be a logistics city, it will be a residential, it will have the seaport, it will have the railway, it have the energy and all different aspects that will create a new pillar in the economy away from the oil. And this is very important. Diversifying from the oil will remain a very important contributors to the GDP in Kuwait. And the northern part projects or the north zone projects won't happen overnight. The expected investment period will between 20 and 25 years, and it will be built gradually. What we are doing now is drafting the law, again, that will give the comfort to everyone, and the master plan. And once this been approved, then we'll be putting everything on a faster track, because we are trying to create a city with its own immunity, and with also the 5 islands. Kuwait, there is 5 islands that will be part of the project that will be developed into some culture zone and some medical zone as well to complement the overall project. So yes, it is diversifying the economy away from oil, but at the same time we are upgrading the infrastructure existing now, and we are working to create an international interest from economic point of view in this project.
One question, since I know you played such a big role in the capital markets and thinking about finance in Kuwait. Kuwait, the system very much, as a oil sector dominates the economy in Kuwait when you're looking at diversification, but also in finance, Kuwait has been really dependent on banking as a kind of finance within the Kuwaiti system, I think more than many of the other states. So how are you looking to kind of diversify the kinds of funding and financing that you have available within the state? And included in that would, of course, be as well looking at financing for small and medium enterprises, because you mentioned young people as well, yes. And that's definitely something that they've expressed a big interest in trying to be an engine for diversification in Kuwait.
The first question is about the banking system. Kuwait has been enjoying a very strong banking world-class system, and the Central Bank of Kuwait is playing a crucial role to look after our monetary policy. it has been rated among the most sophisticated secured banking system. And it is a main contributor to the economy. The banking system in Kuwait today is playing also its role in financing all the projects that's being conducted either by private sectors or by the public sectors. For example, the oil sector now is investing heavily on in their capacity, and it's all being financed through the Kuwaiti banking system. And the capital market is, as I said, has been developed to meet its potential role as the place not to trade euro stock, but also the place to raise capital. And this all complement the steps or the actions taken by Kuwait. And also, here I would like also to emphasize on the role of the private sectors, which has been a main contributor to the GDP. And as a government today, we are under the philosophy of zooming out from operation and maintaining our role as a regulator to oversee the functions of different sectors without intervening in the operations and let the private sectors do all the operations. So that's one. Two, the young people and the small and medium enterprises. 2012, Kuwait has established the National Fund for Small and Medium Enterprises with a paid capital of $6 billion. And it's targeting the young people who would like to take the entrepreneur role and to start their own businesses. And the fund is financing these businesses. And there has been successful stories for young Kuwaitis who took their business from being a local shop. Now we can see them franchising in the GCC. And we believe that small and medium enterprises is the key for better economy because it is the main driver for supporting the economy, and this is targeting the youth for that.
Well, let's turn to questions. I'm sure a lot of you have ideas and things you'd like to ask. Congressman.
Thank you. Ed was-
We'll bring you a mic.
Sure.
Excellency,
If you can just wait 1 minute and we'll have a microphone so that we can capture the sound right here.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I recently returned from Kuwait 10 days ago. I want to congratulate you on this focus of unleashing human capital in terms of your very youthful generation there, in terms of the economic reforms you're pushing, but also in terms of the economic reform, not just economic, but educational reforms that give them really the foundation to succeed. But also with respect to the private sector, as you strengthen that, you're looking at bringing in investment beyond the sectors that you laid out for us, beyond what you want to do in terms of health and hospitality with the hotel investments and specifically the financial services sector. What else do you have in mind in terms of U.S. investment into Kuwait, and how can the United States help with respect to putting Kuwait better on the map for that kind of investment? And I'll follow up with one other question. As the Kuwait Investment Authority looks towards the United States, what types of investments, as you speak about diversification, what types of additional investments are you looking, and is Kuwait looking at making here?
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry I couldn't meet you when you were in Kuwait. Dr. Mirza told me that you would like to meet, but I was out of town when you were there.
I'd get this opportunity.
Yes. But we're looking forward to see you next time in Kuwait, inshallah. Let me start by the second questions about the KIA investment strategy. The U.S. is, I cannot disclose exactly, but I can tell you in a general terms, it is a very substantial part of the portfolio. And recently we have moved into alternative investments and infrastructure. And we are doing greatly well in this part. And this is part of also diversifying away from traditional investments vehicles within the KIA portfolio. So the US is quite important for us. It's a very heavy weight in the portfolio, and I mean, this is for us is very strategic from a KIA point of view. For your first question, what other kind of investments you think the US might bring? I'll give you two examples. We worked through the Public-Private Partnership Authority, where we have a major projects that we don't want to finance it out of our budget, but we would like to get to partner with the private sectors to deliver this. One very successful example is the North Zor refinery. It is multi-billions US dollars investments. It is a joint venture between the public sector, private sector, and international investors. And it is one of the projects that will be an iconic since it will be also listed in the company. So enhancing the private public partnership projects is very important, or the 3Bs, PPP, it's very important. And the list is well, there is a huge or a lot of projects that requires a huge investments, which we believe should be done through the private sectors. The second example is the KDIBA, Kuwait Foreign Investments Promotion Authority. KDIBA is playing the role to reach out for international investments, to explain to them what do we have in Kuwait to offer, to explain to them why they should consider Kuwait as an investment destination. And that's the report that came out from Credit Suisse, that 2018 Kuwait managed the largest FDIs among the GCC. And in that regard, we have secured two projects through KDIBA. One, General Electric have their training facilities, regional training facilities in Kuwait, something it's state-of-the-art facilities, and it's serving the whole region, and this done through KDIBA. And the second one is Boeing training facilities as well, which is coming very soon. And this is, I'm sure everyone agree that General Electric and Boeing wouldn't reach out for Kuwait to set up their training facilities for the region if there is no enough benefit and incentive they have received in order to set up their facilities there, not to mention the 10 years tax exempt and the land allocations and the exemptions of customs for the required equipments they need to bring into the facilities. So these are the kind of investments we are looking for. We are not looking into a traditional real estate investments or fixed income investments, or no, we are also looking for the fintech, which is the fourth revolution is coming. This will dominate the everything we are doing in no time. We are looking into the cybersecurity, which is very, very important and very challenging to everyone, not only in Kuwait. These are the kind of investments that we'd like to not only to participate, but to bring into Kuwait, and out of Kuwait, we could serve the region at large.
Great. Other questions, Mahfouz? And if everyone, when I call on you, if you could just introduce yourself and wait for the microphone, that would be great.
Mahfouz Tadros. I lived in Kuwait for 10 years after I left the World Bank, so I know a little bit about Kuwait. First of all, Mr. Minister, I'd like to congratulate you for an excellent presentation, which you have summed up in your 7 pillars. And one of the pillars that I like very much, as you said, that Kuwait Vision does not compete with the Saudi Vision or the UAE Vision, but it complements it. And I think that's very significant, because in the past there have been lots of duplication. Whenever they have a solar energy center, you have it in the UAE, you have the Saudi Arabia, Kuwait thinking about it. And that to me was a duplication, not a coordination. So I'm very happy to hear that you are complementing each other with your vision 2035 and 2030. Now, I have to emphasize that as a former Minister of Education, and your emphasis on human capital is very significant. It's the most important issue in the development of Kuwait. And to that, you have to, as my colleague mentioned, the knowledge economy. You have to talk about the knowledge economy. And you have to benefit from all the investment that Kuwait has done for KISR, Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research. They have good people. They have some innovations that should be helping the government and the private sector in particular. But you need to connect them better with the private sector and with the various ministries. I just read the Doing Business report of the World Bank of 2019, and I should congratulate Kuwait and yourself also for that, because there is lots of improvement between what happened in 2018 and 2019, and that's the key. And I also like your emphasis on changing the law to make sure that the private sector will get his rights at the end of the day, because without it, they will not come. They will go to another country where they have to do. So I'm not asking for an answer, I'm just complimenting you, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question here?
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your time. I recognize, my name is Doug McGuire. I previously worked at the World Bank at MIGA and now work at a law firm here in town and represent a number of venture capital funds and private equity funds. Recognizing that Kuwait was a leader in terms of establishing the investment fund and authority, but now also recognizing that what we see are a number of sovereign wealth funds coming to the United States, striking partnerships with venture capital funds, and the ecosystem that they have around them of R&D centers, doing specialized funds that try and drive investment back and that are tied to leading research universities in the United States. Is Kuwait already doing that? I know you have a very active investment in terms of sending students here, or are there opportunities to do that for the Investment Authority to be more involved with the US VC and research and development communities?
Probably I'm not revealing a secret if I said that the KIA investments map is like the Coca-Cola recipe. It is very valuable. It is everywhere. And I will not eliminate that our existence in research and development investments. I mean, we are a very frequent visitor to the Silicon Valley. And we are investing in the high tech as part of our alternative investments. And the point is that it is part of our culture. We are playing it very low profile. We don't want to make the headlines, because what matters at the end of the day is the return. I won't be surprised walking in any facilities and find out later on that it was partially owned by the KIA. Yeah.
Robert?
Thank you very much. Robert Mogilnicki, one of the resident scholars here. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Two quick questions. The first, I was curious to get your impression on how you believe U.S. sanctions on Iran may impact the Northern Development projects, and specifically how it might impact global investor interest in those projects. As for the second question, I'm curious about your take on the progress of VAT in the other Gulf states that have implemented it, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and most recently Bahrain. your assessment, perhaps, if it's not too early, and also lessons learned that might be applicable to the Kuwaiti case. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for your question. Let me start by the second one, because the first one, I was having the feeling that I will get this question sometimes. The VAT, yes, it was signed as a GCC in 2016, and the deadline was January 1st of 2018. We have constitutional procedures that should be followed, and this is what we are explaining to our colleagues. In fact, just today we were discussing the same issues with them when we were having a meeting, and we have to take it to the parliament and to get it passed from there. That's his constitutional right. There is no way we can work around this. And this is what we are explaining to them. Having said that, we are now building the capacity, because introducing a taxing regime in a nation which is totally new. I mean, it is a mind shift. It is a culture that takes time until you fully understand the aspects of it. We are building the capacity. We are investing in the IT infrastructure for the team, for the VAT. And it's just coincidence that we are working with the same consultant. I mean, that Saudis work with it, UAE and Bahrain recently. And Oman actually has passed the excise VAT, which will be implemented, I think, beginning of 2019. Yes, we are following the impact in both micro and macro level on the VAT, on all other aspects on the economy. We have organized workshops for 3 days where we invited the tax department from Saudi Arabia and the tax department from UAE, and with our tax department, and they went into their implementation process and what went wrong and how can they avoid the mistakes or the hiccups that was associated at the very beginning, and we are learning from them. So yes, it is very challenging, but we are committed to the GCC agreement, and we are taking it through our constitutional procedures, and we will work it out with the National Assembly. So this is number one. The second one is the U.S. sanctions on Iran and what that will happen. For those who've been to Kuwait, if you looked across the sea, it is less than 100 miles, you will be in Iran. While Iran is 1,000 miles from Washington, D.C. So that gives us all the reasons to be concerned of the consequences of the sanctions. We in Kuwait, we are the strong advocate for negotiation. We believe that the only way you will work out our differences is to sit together and put all the differences on the table and discuss it in a very professional way. We can't change history, and we can't change geography. Those are our neighbors. So we will be affected in one way or another. So for our interest, and I think the interest of everyone, the U.S. included, is to find a way of discussions or negotiating the differences. Because history has shown us that at the end of the day, people will sit together and will negotiate together and will reach out for a deal. It's exactly what's happening now between the U.S. and China. And I think Kuwait is strongly advocating people to discuss their differences, to address their differences. We do respect everyone's decision. We do respect everyone having a different view. There is no problem in that. But also we do have a view, and I think it's for the interests of everyone. We hope that the sanctions will not have an impact on the economic for the whole region. And we hope that they will settle this sometimes, hopefully soon.
Ambassador, did you have a question?
Sure. Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. And you asked one of the questions I was going to ask. But a couple of things. One, I wanted to say, just having been in Kuwait as well, I was impressed to see finally, too, that the road was finished in front of the Sheraton. That was great. But there was progress, and I could see change. And I wanted to
Have you
put...
seen the castaway?
And I've seen, yes, and I wanted to say that, Kuwaitis were very proud of that and wanted to take me to see that. But I also was pleased to see, as you know, it's a very notorious cable that we sent that made it out on WikiLeaks, that we did a bit of, when I was there, we did an actuarial kind of assessment of Kuwait. And we said, unless Kuwait takes X, Y, and Z steps with its demographic growth, with its economy that is solely non-diversified, with the lack of foreign direct investment, et cetera, it will end up in 2020 with nothing more than the equivalent of a 401k per Kuwaiti, which is insufficient to keep them going in the manner to which they're accustomed. Because as you know, and we know, as our Congress knows, once you give people something, whether it's Social Security or anything else, it's very hard to take it back. Once you give them electricity, very hard to take that back or tell them they have to pay for it. So I'm really encouraged and hope and wish you all the best, because these are exactly the kinds of things that we actually talked about, and we said it in the best possible way. It was nothing we hadn't set up and discussed with many officials like yourselves. Yes. So I'm glad to see it's going, and hope that the FDI thing was impressive to me, because I think that was a very different story some time back. So mabruk.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the director of the Kuwait, the Foreign Investment Promotion Authority, will be in D.C. on the 22nd or 23rd. I'm sure he will be very happy to visit you here, and probably he will go dive deep on this issues and how things that they've been doing. And this is very important for us, because we need people like yourself, like everyone's around this table, to know exactly what's happening there. I mean, you've been there, you have your review. It was very well received, and we are taking actions because we do believe this is the right things to do.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to speak a bit more about some of the big projects that you have going on in Kuwait? It is really striking, as somebody who's gone to Kuwait a lot, to see a lot more of this kind of government investment going in big projects. Right.
Yeah, probably if I could name four mega projects away from the oil sector, because the oil sector is a whole different game. We have finished the causeway that link Kuwait City with the northern part of Kuwait, which is the expected Silk City. This is probably the longest causeway in the region. It's 37 kilometers over the shore of Kuwait. This is constructed by Korean Hyundai. It's about 800 million KD, which is equivalent times 3. I think it's 2.4 billion US dollar. This is very strategic. It's for the first time linking the two sides of Kuwait Bay, and this will make the traveling from Kuwait City to the north part is easier and time consuming. It's reducing the traveling time by 1 hour and a half. But now it's about less than 30 minutes on the causeway. That's one. Two, we are investing heavily in the healthcare. We just opened 2 huge hospitals. I wouldn't call it hospitals. It's a whole medical city, one with a 1,200 bed and the other one with 1,170 bed. These are huge facilities that will be run and operated by international operators, and it will uplift the healthcare system in Kuwait, and it's a huge investment that we put in these projects, as well as building some specialized centers for cancer, for diabetes, for children's, for other specific sectors that's needed. So the whole health sector is witnessing a huge transfer and a huge capital investments in that. The fourth one is the new campus of Kuwait University. It is state-of-the-art campus. It's a 9 million square foot in total, and it's It's the investment there is more than $3 billion to bring all the faculties in one place. And this is due to open. I mean, students will start in the new campus, some colleges, this coming fall.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Your Excellency. I think we're hearing word from your team. They have you very sharply scheduled through your trip here, making full advantage of your expertise and your time here. We're just so pleased that you took the time to come here and visit with us at AGSIW and to share with our esteemed guest. So thank you, and you're welcome anytime in Washington.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your taking the time to be here, especially after work. It's 5 o'clock, and I very much appreciate the opportunities to just highlight some of the activities going on in Kuwait, and I'll be very happy to welcome any of you in Kuwait, and probably will your next time here in Kuwait, we'll make sure that I'll be there. And I will very much like to come back at some times and keep the dialogue going and keep you updated on what's going in Kuwait, because we very much value the relation between Kuwait and the U.S., and it is our role, our duties to strengthen this relation in this kind of setting and activities. Thank you very much. Thank you.